basically,
I don't feel like I'm in a zoo.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is super comfortable.
Sorry. Yeah, I thought
we're
about
just joking.
how like the easiest ways I could do it, and this is it.
Okay.
So
Sorry, could you? Can I first ask you where are you working? You work for Milano for the blog.
no, I work
okay.
for SGPIA.
Okay, yeah.
Right, so we publicize any kind of student or faculty work that SGPIA does. But we
Okay.
write for the Milano blog, and then we write for like SGPIA stuff, which is separate.
Okay, great.
All right.
So that's so Steven, you guys emailed Steven. Steven said, we need to write about this. And I was like, okay, but like you have provided me with no information.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, just work it out. I was like, okay.
Great.
So I don't actually know.
Student
Yeah, I don't actually know really much about what you guys have done, so I figured I would just come and talk to you and ask you. And it's not going to be written in interview form. Like I'm not going to be like this
Yes.
person said this.
Right.
It's going to be more a global kind of thing. It's basically an op-ed-ish kind of thing. So about 1,000 words max. So it's like if you can try and be concise.
That won't be me.
It's okay, I'll edit it out. But I basically just want the gist of like how the whole process of like how it went and who you are and how you got involved and how you all got together to do it, etc., etc. So, go. So you want to start actually just telling me like who you are? Maybe let's go with that because yeah.
Introductions, yes.
Okay, well, on the phone is Daphne.
No.
I don't know, can you
Pronounce your name.
Do you want to talk?
Oh, no, I'm okay. I can hear you guys. Hi.
But do you want to introduce yourself or you don't because you're on a bus?
Can you do it for me?
Yeah, we'll do it.
Okay. This is Daphne Regenhart, and
Thank you.
we can set. I think all our names are on the, or you can see it.
Yeah,
in the
email.
email. She's from Argentina. We all just graduated in May, so we all started fall 2014. All GPIA and all development concentration. I don't know what else intro for
Sorry, what was the concentration?
development. We're all
Okay.
development.
All of us.
And everyone graduated.
Yes.
So you're a class of
And then
2016. Development.
and Daphne's back in Argentina, working.
Back in Argentina?
Yeah, she's from Argentina.
She's from Argentina,
She came here
she's
for this program, and now she's back working.
Okay, what are you working in?
Oh, should I say that?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
I'm working for the Department of Social and Urban Integration in Buenos Aires City Government.
Cool.
So it's a program that works for a slum upgrading of a slum in Buenos Aires City.
Cool, what
And I'm
slum?
working as knowledge. I'm the knowledge manager.
Okay. What slum is it?
It's called Villa 31.
Okay, I don't. It's okay.
That was a tough question.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And did you just get this job out of school, or were you like working there before?
I've been working for a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Next. Thank
Okay.
you.
I'm Elise.
Thank you.
Thanks, Daphne.
Thanks.
So yeah, development. I just graduated.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks.
As far as work, I actually start tomorrow. I'll be working at the Institute of Human Rights at Columbia
Oh,
as a program coordinator. I don't know what else.
Program communicator.
Huh?
Program communicator.
Program coordinator.
Co-ward. Yep. Cool. And you just started. Wow. Will.
Yeah.
Woohoo. Congrats. Good job. That's exciting. That's like the hardest one.
Yes.
Yes, it's awful.
It is. Start very early.
Thanks.
My name is Kat. I'm also development concentration. I am still making decisions about work.
But sounds promising.
Sounds promising though. What else?
What's your interest? Anything that pays, or like, is there a specific thing?
I like development work.
Yeah.
Not the like international development, but also development in the like fundraising context.
Okay.
So philanthropy and general grant admin type of jobs.
Okay. Any specific reason? That's just what interests you? Do you have experience in that?
It's where most of my experience is, and I find that it pays better than the program work.
Fair. Fair enough. Okay.
Gotta live.
And Monica,
Yeah.
same. I graduated with them this fall, development concentration. I'm from Ecuador, and I moved here for my studies.
Yeah.
And I started working a month ago at Covenant House. It's an NGO, and I'm the research and evaluation analyst
For what?
for Covenant House. Or what do you mean?
Oh, yeah, okay. I thought you said they are research and development analysts. What does Covenant House do?
Covenant House work with homeless youth and street children, and they work in North and Latin America.
Okay. Street children. Sorry. And you're a research and development.
Research and evaluation analyst.
Okay, so let's talk about your actual thing. Why I'm here, anyway. What is it? How did you all get involved?
At least you want to do the intro since you and Daphne.
Oh, sure.
Keep the
So we all did the practicum. So
Yeah.
we were in PIA 1 in the fall, and we had a project and it didn't really go anywhere, and we were discussing what our next move was because we wanted to find something else, and sorry, and actually Daphne had brought up the idea of, or just had come to her attention, the issue of homeless women and menstrual hygiene products and their access to it and what do they do and everything that surrounds that. And we all really liked the idea and wanted to do something with it for our practicum. And through research, we had found that legislation had been proposed by the New York City Council that would encompass, it's 5 prongs, and one of the prongs was providing these products in homeless shelters in New York City. So we reached out to the council member, and they needed needs assessment and a report to support legislation, and that's where we came in.
Cool. So, that's a great summary, but I presume it was a little bit more difficult than that. How did you guys come together? Were you just friends? Were you a pre-formed group that was trying to do a project and then the project didn't work out?
Yeah, so we all signed up for a different project during PIA 1. And
Right.
when...
As in together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it was open...
But we signed up, individually.
Yeah, we signed up
so.
individually, ended up as a group.
Yeah.
And then when that didn't work out, the bulk of us, the 4 of us out of the 6, decided to stay on for this project, and the other 2 went on to other things.
Right. Okay.
And then we just...
So it kind of just stemmed from just like an idea of like, what do homeless women do for menstrual products? So what's the legislation?
I can do that. Yeah. So the legislation has 5 different parts, and it focuses one in providing menstrual products in homeless shelter, another one's in public schools, and a third one is in jails. And a 4th and 5th part of the legislation that we think encompasses more of a federal law is to have no tax on menstrual products, and the other one is to include menstrual products in SNAP and WIC, so all those like programs.
Right.
So they have these 5 points, and we decided to focus only on the shelter one. So we collected qualitative data, and we need a needs assessment for the legislation.
Right. So was the legislation already in motion? Like, had it been already proposed?
It was being drafted, I believe, at the time, and then it was proposed during the course of our project. So we participated in the roundtables that were organized to discuss these issues, and we ended up testifying at the legislative hearing as well in support of the legislation.
Cool.
So it's kind of happening side by side.
Who was the councilman that you contacted?
So we worked with council member Julissa Ferris Copeland, and her district is in Queens.
Yeah.
And I believe it was sponsored by other ones too, which we could find out their names. But she was one of the main proponents of this legislation.
So were you working with her office specifically, or were you working on it on your own and then kind of present, like what's the process? How does it work?
We got in contact with her office and we're working with her legislative director.
Yeah.
And then to get into the shelters, we had to work with the Department of Homeless Services.
Right.
Which was separate from them.
Yeah.
And then once we were able to go into the shelters, then we were dealing with the shelter admin staff.
So,
our relationship with them was basically they gave us what they wanted, or told us what they needed rather, and then we went and did independent work with some small check-ins, and then we delivered a report. So they were a client, but they were not doing any of the work that was our job.
Right, and there was not a lot of oversight, it sounds
Not
like.
a lot of oversight.
Okay, so they kind of just said, this is what we need.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for volunteering to do it.
Mm-hmm.
See you when it's done.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, so then, how did you know what to do?
That's a good question. We did a lot of research to see what was being done in the States, and then if anything had been done in any other countries with this kind of like government supplied products. And then we reached out to some people who were more like advocates, because nothing has been done in the US at all. Any kind of products that are given out in shelters or schools, it's all through private means.
Yeah.
So donations from private individuals, some in-kind donations from corporations.
Right.
But nothing state sanctioned.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's important to note, though, that we just use some of the structure that PIA as a class provided to us. Yeah. Because even though it was not a project, it was like the pre-project we were working on, so like the research on the needs assessment, this is the sort of structure that the class provided to us. And it's like, you make like a baseline research of like what's being done, what's not being done, and then you move from there. You like contact different like relevant stakeholders, and then from that, so it's like the class was our base to create the structure for our research.
Yeah, right.
And then we moved from there, and we looked anything that has been done, anyone that we could contact. Like, it was very much on our own and emailing random people, hoping that someone would eventually reach out to us.
Right.
Like, we emailed so many people, and probably like 5 of them reach out.
Right.
But it's like, it's still like it's creating a network by ourselves.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then you come from the councilwoman's legislative director man's phone call / office, and he says, this is what we need done. You do some research, you talk about it in class, presumably with someone in faculty.
Yeah.
Right?
We did have an advisor.
Right.
Yes.
How useful was that person, and who was that person?
Achilles, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so Achilles, what's his last name?
Daphne, what's his last name? Are you still?
Calergis.
Calergis?
I don't know how you pronounce it.
We can get
your email. So Achilles, so Achilles had worked with Daphne before.
Yeah.
And we reached out to him because his main focus is public policy.
Okay.
So we talked to him, and he's the one that guided us through the research and what should be done and how should we structure and the guidelines. So we would have like weekly or bi-weekly meetings with him.
Right.
And he represented a big support. Like, he was very supportive of the whole idea.
Yeah.
He gave us a better structure in terms of policy, because none of us has really focused in policy before this.
Yeah.
So I thought he was a great help.
Yeah.
So what was exactly the structure? Like, so what did you come up with? What did you decide you needed to do? You know what I mean? Because, like, I still am not exactly clear what you're doing. I presume that's how you felt at this point. But, like, what exactly, where did the councilwoman's office, because so my job is to not use jargon and try and explain it in layman's terms. Mm-hmm. So you're using terms that I'm not a development concentration person, so I don't actually know what you're saying.
Okay.
So what does it mean?
So we needed to find out what women in shelters, or any menstruating person, we went into women's shelters, but this does include a bigger population than just like identifying women. But we wanted to know what was their life like in the shelters when it came to their menstruation needs. Did they get anything from the shelters? How did they decide? If they didn't, how did they decide what products to buy? Did they even have money to spend on it?
What their sources were for these products, if any, like food banks or whatever sometimes do these drives.
So to see what that was, so that we could then tell the council members this is their actual life day to day with this.
Right.
This is what they need. This is
so
what
it's to figure out what's available, what's not available, and then and talk about the gap.
If we found out that all these shelters already provide these things, then they don't need to pass legislation.
Right.
That's the thing. That for us, it was doing, like, when we mean by needs assessment, it's like doing a research that proves why we need this legislation. Why is this important? And then what are the conditions under this women are living? And then the moment that we went to the hearing, we were needed to prove with like anecdotes, with numbers, with statistics, why is it this legislation is important for it to pass.
Okay. So how did you pick what shelters you go into?
So to get into a shelter, like I said before, you have to get permission from DHS.
Yeah.
The governing body of the shelter system in New
And
York.
when you say you, like to get, so you mean to do research in or just to walk in?
Anyone who wants to do research and talk to the residents has to have permission
and
from
even
the Department of Homeless
sometimes
Services.
just to get addresses, they're not all, I mean, you can't just go online and find the address of every single shelter in New York City for confidentiality and safety reasons for the clients.
Right, so there's no like public information of like how many shelters there are, who's in, like not who, but like how many people can be accommodated.
There are some broad numbers.
Right.
But not all the addresses are made public.
Yeah. Because some of them are for domestic violence, so to protect the safety of their clients, they can't put out addresses and everything. Right. So I think I personally learned a lot about the homeless shelter system in New York City through this project. So we had to contact them, and that took a long time to get to the right person to actually say, okay, you can go in. And then they told us which shelters we could go in. Right. So it wasn't completely random on their end. On our end, we didn't get to choose which ones we got.
And how many shelters did you go into?
Five.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How many shelters are there in New York? Nobody knows.
Hundreds. Way more than
Hundreds. No one ever got back to us with a specific number, but there are a lot. And there's actually more need for beds in shelters than there are actual beds. So the city puts people in hotels and rents out apartments. So, I mean, I think...
So those numbers fluctuate based on...
Right, but then, I mean, like, there's no public information about how many actual shelters, just how many without locating them there are in the city.
We didn't find it, or we didn't have access to it.
We didn't have access to the information.
I know of one person who was able to find all the family shelters in the city, but that was really just a list of family shelters, not single women's, not domestic violence, not single men's.
Yeah, okay.
So, and it was hundreds of buildings with that. But some of those buildings were listed as one facility. So
okay. So then they tell you can go into five shelters. I presume you would then have to create a plan of what you're going to do when you get there, right? So then what's that process?
With our advisor at Keyless, we drafted survey, what was the name that we used? Not survey, a structured interview.
Yeah.
To interview the people that worked at the shelter and the women that lived in the shelter. So we just drafted different questions of information that we would find relevant to ask, and how we can somehow just like get a better idea of what their lives are like and what their needs are. Right. So we went in there and it was completely voluntary. Once we actually got the permission, as Elise said, took a while. Yeah. Once we actually got the permission and went in, it was completely voluntary, and whoever wanted to talk to us, we came in and just like had a conversation with them based on the question that we had drafted with Achilles.
Right. And we also had a Spanish version for Spanish speakers.
Yeah.
And the questions were, I think, about 10 demographic questions, and then maybe 10 or 12 specifically relating to menstrual hygiene management.
Right. And how many people did you speak to? Or how many did you get in the end?
29 women and I believe 5 administrators.
Okay, cool. And so what were you looking, like what were some of the questions you were asking, apart, like obviously demographic questions, fine, but with specifically in relation to like the issue?
We asked if they have enough supply. Do they get it from the shelter? Where else do they get it? Personal preferences. Have they gone without supply?
Do they have to improvise ever? And then we asked 2 open-ended questions about how they think the product should be distributed.
Right. And sorry, just to clarify, this was limited not to, like, you didn't go into things like, do you have gynecological services? This was only just menstruation.
We asked the admin what services the shelters provide. So a lot of them do have health services, which would include, gynecological.
Okay, but not specifically.
We didn't ask the women.
Not to them.
Okay. So you got 29. Okay, and then what's the next step?
So we collected all the data from the 29 women and we put all our information together, and mainly like based on their answers and results that we got and the recommendations from their own women, we created a list of 5 recommendations, three recommendations for which we would suggest to the legislation.
Sure.
Things to take into account.
Which were?
One was to provide more variety of products, because the women were reporting that the products that the shelter gives them, if they give them, were like the old non-winged, really clunky pads that nobody wears. And also they don't provide tampons. So the women, some of the younger women especially, were saying that they only have pads, I wear tampons, so I go buy tampons. The other one was that due to the nature of DHS and the shelter network in general, city-funded shelters do provide these products, but shelters that are on a contract with the city don't necessarily have to. So we recommended that there was a standardization of contracts to require all shelters, if they get any money from the city, to include those items as a budget item, so they have to buy them. And the third
was to provide them in the bathroom, because many of the women complained that they would have to either go to some admin that could be male or female, or like ask for a certain amount, so that they would have like a quota of when you get them and how many do you get them. So that, as you know, like those are things that are like changed from woman to woman. And we suggested that it should be somewhere open where you can have access of as many as you want whenever you need them. So ideally just have them in the bathroom.
Right. Okay. Cool. So then you write this thing, and then you take it back, I guess, to the councilwoman's office.
Correct.
Yeah. And then what happens then?
So we gave the report to her office, presented our findings, and then
They liked it.
They liked it.
They were satisfied with it.
This was in May, and then in June. Or was it June? No, it was May.
So you had started in the fall, essentially.
We started with this specific project
in February.
Well, like January,
okay.
But like
the class started,
right,
in the fall. But
then you had the other project.
The whole first semester, was on the project that didn't work through.
Yeah.
So then just our second semester, which is different from what PIA usually does. PIA is a whole year. For us, it was.
But we got, like Monica said, like the basic building blocks for
because
this
PIA
project.
One is just like project cycle.
Theory,
in fall. And then
sorry, I don't know what project cycle is.
So project cycle is basically the steps that you follow from the inception of a project to its completion. Okay. So it goes through like doing a needs assessment, is this project necessary, and setting up systems for monitoring the project as it goes on, and then evaluating the project at the end.
Right, so it's kind of like building blocks for
for any kind of project.
Right, which you then implemented in your real thing.
So after we presented, a few weeks after, they had the hearing for the legislation where, which was open to the public, where people could come in and testify as to whether they think this legislation is good or bad, and if they had research or personal experience with what this legislation was about, would get to testify. So we got to testify.
Cool.
Which was awesome.
Yeah, we presented our recommendations, our findings, we told our story. It was really cool.
We told everyone where we were from.
Exposure. The new school. Yeah, it was really exciting.
Tell them again.
It was so exciting.
Yeah. Cool. And like this is like in front of a committee, I presume?
Correct.
Or,
yeah, there was. It was the women's
committee.
The women's committee of the
the
city council.
Yeah.
So they sat up there, and then it was open to anyone, and then they asked questions. Also, the council could ask questions.
Cool. Yeah. And then I presume like that's it. You leave it there, and you hope that something will happen. And then what happened?
So then the next step is that the city council actually votes for it.
Okay. Yep.
And they did, and it passed.
When did that?
Humanity.
When did that happen?
It was the end of June because I was in California.
I was in June. Yeah.
Mid-June. Late June.
That's so fun.
So after graduation, after we're done, like we testified after we were done with our classes, after we were done with Milano in general.
Cool. And then it passed, and it will be implemented presumably.
And then it needs to be signed by the mayor.
Yeah.
So then there was another gathering and everything in which he signed the bill, and now turned to Elise was the only one.
I was the only one who was go, but it was very cool.
Yeah.
It was held in they did a test run for having the products in schools, in public schools. So it was in Queens and the Bronx. So this was held in one of the test schools in the Bronx, and there was camera crews, and the mayor came, and he spoke in Spanish, and it was not great, but it was really cool.
Higher than Bloomito.
Oh, I didn't watch. I don't know about him. But then they had like a desk set up with special pens, and he went over and sat and signed the bill, and people gave remarks, like the main council members and one of the students who has been very active in one of the high schools where the pilot program is going on. So it was very cool.
Very cool. So it's been signed into law.
Great. And is
now we're expecting it.
So the school stuff, like all the public schools in New York City, middle and high schools, will have the dispensers in the bathrooms by the start of this next school year.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure about the exact dates, but it's been signed into law, and it's been worked into the budget, the city budget.
That's
so
great. Cool.
It's happening.
So then, like, did that make you guys interested in politics, anything, or are you like, okay, that was fun?
Well, first of all, it opened up our eyes to the whole issue of like menstrual hygiene management that we had no idea really was a big thing, and it showed us that there's a movement happening, and we got to go to all these like cool events, and we saw some interesting people speak, and we got to make connections that we didn't have previously. As for policy, I'm personally still not going to venture into policy. I think it takes more than one project to really be acquainted with it. But I do like read more about this stuff.
I got super interested, and I've looked for jobs in more policy and research. That's not where my current job is, but I'm very interested in it, and I think Daphne. I don't know.
Daphne's in policy.
Daphne's
definitely
super,
in policy. Yeah.
I think she might have. I don't know. I can speak for her. I think she was interested in it before.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's opened her eyes to it. I think she was already interested in it. But
cool. Have you gone back to talk?
Sorry. No, the thing is that I agree with Elise. Like, it got me interested into policy in general, just because I know that this is not necessarily the case with every bill that's been proposed, but it was just really exciting to see how, like, one person's effort, like, you could see Julissa being, like, super excited about this, and, like, her team being so excited about this, and this, how one person can, like, just, like, try to influence other people, and how you get to see the implementation of a change. That was, like, I think it was really exciting and unique for us to experience. And my job is not necessarily focused on policy right now, even though Covenant House does do a little bit of policy influence, but I'm not on it. But the other thing that for me opened my eyes was just because we were studying international development, we tend to think of this as issues outside of the U.S. borders. Right. And we think that it's only like in Africa that people lack feminine hygiene products, that is only in Latin America. And it opened your eye to see like the division that exists within New York City, should say. So it's like one of the most expensive cities in the whole world, and there's people who still cannot afford to have these basic needs. So it's just eye-opening to study international development, but just find around the block people that are facing the same issues that you studied about outside your borders. So it was super interesting.
Cool. So what happens now?
As far as with this,
well,
hopefully, I mean, with this, hopefully this helps a lot of people of all ages who are experiencing problems with accessing these products.
Yeah. Well, I think that what we would hope to see ideally is for this to trickle down to other states, to other cities. Like, that would be the ideal case. Because this was so groundbreaking, right? Like, for us, mind-blowing that it's groundbreaking, because it should be done. But ideally, this could go into other cities and other states, eventually become like federal law, just like be considered the basic need that it is. So I don't know how much we are personally going to be involved in that, but it's something that we would hope to see. Yes, it's something that we would love to see. That would be interesting.
And are there any plans to go back to any of your shelters and see if like the women, how
Your
they're
accent's
affected.
really hard.
Oh, right, because you can't go back.
I mean, I would love to hear how the shelters we went to are doing and how life for their clients has changed for the better since this. And I think we could definitely keep in touch with admin and see.
And hopefully there will be like some kind of monitoring of the effects of this done by DHS if they get around to their structural whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting if that research is ever made available.
Okay. I guess I suppose we should do some kind of new school plug. So, but you've mentioned that you had like the PIA 1 was pretty like helpful in helping you navigate this process, and that your advisor was really good. Is there anything or anyone else you want to kind of shout out before we get done? You don't have to be. I mean, if you only worked with one person, that's fine.
Well, I mean, Mark Johnson does PIA 1 and 2 and M&E, which we all took, and a monitoring and evaluation also, which I think played a part in our design.
Yeah.
So that was good. I mean,
in terms of like research and trying to find sources for all and like locations, I definitely used a lot of like the things and the resources that we got from the GIS class as well.
Right. Okay.
Like the city resources and trying to find out what the locations of these places are.
Right.
Ultimately not too successful, but
you tried.
But I tried, and it was nice to have like places that I could go. To start looking.
Cool.
Also, I mean, this is just for me, but the classes that helped a lot with this were more, I guess, like hard skill classes, like the project design and
quant methods.
And quant, like statistics, like those were really beneficial, and I think those are really important for people who want to go out and do
any kind of research
or like on the ground type work. Like it's good to have a theory base, but you also need to know like how to deal with like things on the ground, and how to put that into perspective.
Collect consistent data.
Cool. So what classes would you recommend for students that are like thinking of doing something like this? So GIS,
quantitative methods. Both of the quantitative methods. I would recommend
PIA, obviously.
Monitoring and evaluation. I would recommend PIA, both of the classes, and monitoring and evaluation.
Okay. And also, I think as a team, we would like to strongly encourage people to seek their own projects.
Right.
Yes. So of course,
like if you're not feeling satisfied,
right?
If it's
like
available.
They provide you with alternative of projects, but it's always good for new school students to explore alternatives on their own.
Right.
And you're in New York City, so there's so many organizations and
in need
and things going on.
Right.
So you don't feel like you're stuck.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I don't have any more questions.
Okay. No, that's great.
Thank you guys.
Great interview.
Thank you for your time.
Being interested.